Hey everybody, I'm Uncle Nay, and today we're going to be talking about. Wait a second, I think I know somebody. Is that Levi? Hey Levi, how's it going, buddy? What was I saying? Oh yeah, so today we're going to be talking about mosquitoes and bees. So today we're going to talk all about bugs with Uncle Nay, mosquitoes and bees. So, what are bees and mosquitoes? Can you take a second to think about what they actually are? Does anybody know? That's right, they are insects. But really, when you think about it, what are insects? Well, one way to describe an insect is that it's an animal that has no spine, like you and I. It has how many legs? Can you count all the legs that bumblebee there has? So it has one, two, three, four, five, six. It has 6 legs, and there are one or two pairs of wings. So in this case, for the bumblebee, there's a pair of front wings in red, and then I've highlighted a pair of hind wings. So there's a total of 4 wings or 2 pairs of wings for the bumblebee. But how are they, say, different from us? How are insects different than you and I? Well, we have bones, right? We have a skeleton. So with the skeleton, it helps support your body and you can move around with it. But insects don't have a skeleton, so how do they move around? What supports their bodies? Well, it's their exoskeleton. So it's what's on the outside of their body. It's almost like a shell. It's really, really hard. Well, instead of having a spine, they have an exoskeleton. And another way that insects are different than humans is that, we have a nose, so we can smell really, really well with our nose. But what do insects have to help them smell? Does anybody know? Well, they have antennae. So they have 2 antennae on their head, and it helps them smell. And another way that we are different than insects, or insects are different than us, is that we breathe with our lungs, right? Pretty easy. But it's kind of weird because insects don't have lungs at all. So, how do they breathe? Well, they actually have, and this is super weird, they have these little holes on the sides of their bodies, and air just goes in and out of those. And that's how they breathe. But more specifically, they are called spiracles. Those tiny little holes on the sides of their bodies, they're called spiracles, and they breathe with them. It's really, really weird. And if we're talking about 2 types of insects in general, if we're talking about a bee and a mosquito, well, how are they different from one another? Well, bees have tongues, and they use that tongue to lick up the nectar that's that the flower produces. So they stick those long tongues down into the flower, and they're able to lick up the sugar water, basically, which is nectar. But mosquitoes are a little bit different. They have a different type of mouth part called a proboscis, and they use that to basically suck your blood. It's really, really weird and nasty, but they have this mouth part that's almost like a straw, and they use that straw to suck up blood from you, from another animal, so they'll fly and land on your skin, and then they'll bite you, and that creates a little bump, and it's really, really itchy, and it's definitely no fun. But that's the main difference between a bee's tongue, and a mosquito's tongue, is that the bees have literally like a tongue that they use just to lick up sugar water, whereas mosquitoes have a straw, basically. It's like a straw. So another thing that's different between a bee and a mosquito is that bees have 4 wings. So they have the 2 front wings, just like that bumblebee. And here's one of the honeybees, and they have a pair of hind wings. So they have 4 wings total. But how many wings do you see on that mosquito? I see 2 wings. So bees have 4 and mosquitoes have 2. And another reason why bees are different than mosquitoes is because of what they eat. So we know that bees like to visit flowers, and they visit those flowers to lick up the nectar and to pick up some pollen. And they eat both of those. They'll eat the pollen and they'll eat the nectar. But what does a mosquito feed on? So if you look at that cartoon there, the mosquito lands on your skin and it bites you and then it sucks your blood. So it's actually feeding on blood, and that's what it likes to do. It's really, really nasty. But why are bees really good? We always hear that, bees are really, really good insects and we should really care about them. Well, almost all of the fruits and vegetables that you see at the grocery store, they are made by bees. And this is called pollination. So basically a bee will land on a flower. So you can see that picture to the left there. That is a bee that's landed on a flower that was in an apple tree. And when that bee lands on that flower, it picks up pollen and it will move from one flower to a next and it will pollinate those flowers. And eventually, if you have many bees land on those flowers and that flower was pollinated well, it'll start to grow a fruit. And that's where almost all of your fruits and vegetables, where they come from. So if the bees weren't around at all, we wouldn't have many fruits and vegetables. And that would be a pretty bad thing. So we really need the bees in order to produce or to make our fruits and vegetables. But on the flip side, so why are mosquitoes bad? You never really hear good things about mosquitoes, right? I mean, I've never heard of really good things about them. We always complain that, they'll bite you and they'll make you itchy and you get a bump on you, just like that picture in the middle. But also, mosquitoes are known to make you sick. So certain mosquitoes will carry diseases and they will make you sick. So it's really important that we try and get rid of mosquitoes, say in our own backyards. And there are some things that you can do in order to keep mosquitoes away. And they're really, really easy to do, and it works. So mosquitoes are kind of weird because they lay their eggs on top of the water. So you can see this is a girl mosquito right here, and she's laid her eggs on top of the water. And once those eggs hatch, they'll turn into larvae. And that's what you see kind of squirming in the water right here. Now they're really weird because you can see their heads are down here towards the bottom of that little video. So what's on the top of the video, and they're in water, is their butts basically. So they are sticking their butts out of the water and they're breathing. So remember I told you insects breathe in really different and weird ways. Well, here's a perfect example is that mosquito larvae are basically breathing out of the water with their rear ends. So it's kind of funny, kind of weird. But one thing that you can do since mosquitoes grow in the water, well, take a look around your backyard. You can get rid of water that's been sitting there for a long time. Chances are, if there's water that's been sitting for a long time, a girl mosquito's laid her eggs in it, and there are larvae swimming around. And eventually, that larvae will grow into an adult, and then they'll fly away. So what you can do is look for standing water. So anywhere there's water that's just sitting there for a while, like in a bucket or in an old tire or even an old, your dog's bowl that may be left outside and it's just been sitting there. So any of those things, even a bird feeder. And when I was growing up in my house, well, outside of my house in my backyard, there used to be this really, really old tree. And where a limb used to be, where a branch used to be, it broke off, and then it created this little pool of water inside that tree trunk. And I remember seeing so many mosquitoes coming out of that tree. And now today I realize that there were there were girl mosquitoes that laid eggs in that water. They hatched into larvae, and then they grew into adults, and that's why there were so many mosquitoes in my backyard. So one of the things that you can do is anytime you see standing water, you can just dump out the water that's there. So if your dog's water bowl is outside, flip it upside down periodically, so once in a while, to make sure that there's no mosquitoes that are living in there. If there's old buckets, knock them over. But if you have an area in your yard, and it has to be fresh water, mosquitoes don't like salt water. They can't live in it. But if you have a little, say, pond or something in your backyard and you know mosquitoes are in it, if you see little mosquito larvae that are swimming around and they got their rear ends sticking out of the water, what you can do is you can get these, and this is on the right hand side in this red. You can buy these at any hardware store or appliance stores like Walmart or something like that. These are called mosquito dunks. They're like little donuts. And what they do is when you drop them in the water, they'll basically they'll make the water not smell very good for mosquitoes. And the mosquitoes do not like to lay eggs in that water. So if you have an area around your house that there's water constantly, like a pond or something like that, where the water's not moving, and when I say the water's not moving, like think of areas where the water does move, like a stream or a creek. Mosquitoes won't live in water that's constantly moving. They will only stay in water that's standing, or it's staying still, it's stagnant. So in that case, if you see any standing water like a pond, you can put these little mosquito donuts into the water and it'll prevent mosquitoes from living there. That's it for today. So I hope you all learned something. And what you can do is go in your backyards tonight whenever you get home and tell your parents, I need to check the backyard and make sure there's no mosquitoes living there. And if you do take care of all the standing water, you will reduce mosquitoes and hopefully you won't get mosquito bites from them. See you later, everybody.